I'm happy to present our next speaker, Giulio Torretta, from the University of Padua. The University of Padua have been a long-term partner for PHAIDRA with our university, and they are a great partner. We had been developing a lot together, and Padua, the University of Padua, helped us to improve a lot of PHAIDRA. And Giulio, he is managing the library services and PHAIDRA at the Botanical Garden at the university. And he is also developing and operating library services and web services to discover and to present digital objects. The stage is yours, Giulio.
Thank you very much, Raman. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the chance to participate in this year's PHAIDRAcon'. I'm sharing my screen. In this presentation, I will be talking about a project that we undertaken about the enhancement of the historical archive of the University of Padua Botanical Garden in terms of its data enrichment, integration, and reuse. First of all, some words about the University of Padua Botanical Garden, which was founded in 1545. It is the oldest existing university botanical garden in the world, founded by the Venetian Republic. It has an history of cultivation of medical plants, that is, medicaments of natural origin, and served as a landmark for the studying and teaching of medicine and botany in Padua, and not only in Padua. And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The history of the this botanical garden is recorded in its historical archive that consists of 200 folders ranging from the 18th century to the second half of the 20th century. The archive contains administrative and scientific records and the correspondence of gardens directors. The archive is housed at the library of the Botanical Garden. To promote this precious heritage, in 2018, a project for the enhancement, rearrangement, and inventory of the historical archive started. It is a project based on the collaboration between the Library Center and the General Archive of the University of Padua. And the ultimate achievement of the project is the online publication of on PHAIDRA, of the PHAIDRA repository, of the digital collection named Historical Archive of the Botanical Garden of Padua. Why did we choose PHAIDRA? Because we wanted to preserve and disseminate the output of the project using the local PHAIDRA instance hosted and managed at the University of Padua. This instance shares most of the features of Vienna's PHAIDRA. That is, the digital objects archived in the repository are described by rich metadata, interconnected with typed relationships, identified by a permanent identifier, and characterized by well-defined access conditions and licenses. The repository is compliant to the FAIR principles, and it's also interoperable via OEI, PMH, and API. The local Padua PHAIDRA instance has some peculiarities. It mostly hosts a digital collection of cultural heritage content from GLAM institutions, all the University of Padua, the Ca' Foscari University of Venice, and many others. It is also Cortra Seal certified, which makes it a trustworthy repository. This project builds upon relevant previous projects and works that contributed to lay the foundations of it. Here I mention some of them. The first project was the cataloging in the University Library System catalog of the personal correspondence of Pier Andrea Saccardo, who was the gardens directors, the Botanical Garden directors from 1878 to 1920. There was another project, was the preservation project of the Padua's Botanical Garden, that consisted in the conservation treatment, housing and storage of the archival records. There was next a national project about innovative strategies for the enhancement and dissemination of knowledge and botanical and bibliographic collections. And during this project, part of Saccardo's records have already been digitized and archived in PHAIDRA. Also, a Master of Art thesis that provided the first time inventory of the historical archive of the Botanical Garden, and last but not least, an internship that led to the creation of a digital edition prototype of Andrea Saccardo, so correspondence, so the correspondence between two botanists. What were the project stages? The first was the first phase was the digitization of the documents, then the inventorying in the university archival system, the data modeling phase, a data enrichment based on per document analysis, and finally the archiving in PHAIDRA. Regarding the digitization process, it took place according to the methodologies and objectives defined by the guidelines on the digitization of two-dimensional documents, which are guidelines developed and maintained by the Padua PHAIDRA team. And these guidelines are based on good practices and national and international standards for quality reproduction of documents, and indicates a set of procedures for the digitization of two-dimensional documents, with particular reference to the archiving in PHAIDRA. According to these guidelines, two different format files were created for each document of the archive: a high-quality master file, a TIFF file, and a web-optimized JPG file. The digitization was mostly performed in-house with selected tools based on the type of document needed. So we used a flatbed scanner for single sheet two-dimensional documents, a book scanner for bound manuscripts and books, and also a digital camera for three-dimensional objects like plant specimens, medals, and fabrics that we also found in the archive. The inventorying phase was carried out in the university archival platform, which runs a software named Arianna. The archival description in the platform has been based on the general international standard for archival description and the international standard for archival authority records, and was encoded by the EAD encoding schema for effective interoperability between information systems. At this stage of the project, we need to define the level of description of the digital object representing the archival data in PHAIDRA. To this purpose, we need to introduce some archival terminology to explain the two different levels of description. We define as archival file an organized unit of documents grouped together that relate to the same subject, activity, or transaction. So a file is usually a basic unit within a record series. For instance, the whole correspondence between two botanists is a file. On the contrary, an archival item is the smallest intellectually indivisible archival unit. So a lecture, a memorandum, a report, a photograph, or a sound recording is an item. The inventorying in the university archival platform has been made at the file level. This is useful because at the data modeling phase, we also need to enrich the metadata. So we need to make a shift from the archival file level description to a more granular description of PHAIDRA at item level. So we have to translate the archival logical structure into PHAIDRA's collection structure. We had to analyze the archival data model and do the mapping to the PHAIDRA data model and do this enrichment at the item level. So what it means that at the item level, we added some metadata elements that didn't exist in the archival description. So the resource type and genre of the document, we added the authorial entities with the VIAF identifier. We added keywords from controlled vocabularies, spatial and temporal coverage, dates, languages, and the description. We also add or enhance or enrich the description. To do this, we followed two main procedures that involved some iterative revisions of the data. So we have a manual procedure that consisted in a per document analysis, a data description, and a review and validation. That is cleansing and refinement of date and authors, subject indexing, so that we could keep the data consistent with the reference model. And while a semi-automated procedure that was applied only to the Saccardo's domestic correspondence implied the export of mark metadata from the bibliographic catalog, the reshaping of metadata with MarkEdit software, and data cleaning, authorial entities reconciliation, and formalization of spatial and temporal coverage with OpenRefine software. So to wrap up, this is the workflow, the data workflow. As we can see, the use of the three sources of data, the archival platform, the document analysis, and the bibliographic catalog, all contributed to the representation of the digital object in PHAIDRA. The ingestion phase of the digital object into PHAIDRA took place via a programmatic tool that we developed from scratch. The tool comprises a set of Python modules to manipulate and create PHAIDRA metadata, merge the archival system metadata with the per document analysis metadata, and eventually ingest the files, the PDF files of the image of the documents via the PHAIDRA API into PHAIDRA. This is how the archive is represented in PHAIDRA at the University of Padua. The user can start exploring the archive from the featured collection link on the homepage, which is in Italian, but there is also an English interface. Or the user can browse the archive tree to navigate to a particular branch of the archive, such as fonts, series, and subseries. And this is the landing page of digital objects in PHAIDRA, where we can identify the different sources of the data and the metadata merged together. So, for instance, the description metadata element gathers the document analysis metadata, the archive logical structure. So it's part of a font and series and so on, and the archival metadata. And the same applies for the authorial entities. And some figures about this project, this 4-year project. 4-year-long project. We digitized 23,000 documents and created 89,000 master image files. And thanks to the extensive work of metadata gathering and enrichment, about 40,000 authorial entities were identified. We have more project figures regarding the type of materials, places, dates, descriptions, keywords, and languages. We can note that the 80% of documents in the archive is represented by correspondence, and these highlight the specificity of the archive records. In this map, we can get a glimpse at the geographical distribution of Saccardo's correspondence. So, as we can see, they are scattered all around the world, ranging from Japan to United States. And in this pie chart, we can have a look at the languages used in the same corpus of Saccardo's correspondence. These and the previous slides are just two simple examples of the further analysis that scholars can make with the data we collected and published in PHAIDRA. We can say also that this large amount of data produced throughout the project reflects the informative richness of the archive and can foster new inquiries and research towards the reuse of all this data. All this project wouldn't have been possible without the essential involvement of multiple competencies and diverse professional backgrounds that included archivists, librarians, IT specialists, 15 National Civilian Service volunteers, undergraduate trainees, all led by a scientific coordinator. So a lot of different competencies that work together for the same goal. And where to go next? We have some ideas. Some of them are already ongoing activity. For example, we are already extending the project to the archive records, to the what we call the modern part of the archive records, ran from 1921 to 1989, applying the same methodology. We are also already creating virtual exhibitions with all the findings we got from the archive, from the analysis of the archive. We plan to improve the PHAIDRA interoperability with the University Archival platform, and further reuse and disseminate the collected data in national and international aggregators, and also on Internet Archive. We want also to explore the publishing of the correspondence of the correspondence metadata on Corresp Search. That is the catalog that indexes letter collections, and maybe explore also the digital representation of a 19th century scientific correspondence. And because we digitized a lot of handwritten documents, we can test also the automatic handwritten text recognition on them, and create enrich the Wikidata items that some of them we already use using during the reconciliation phase with the OpenRefine software, but we can at this time enhance, enrich the Wikidata items. For instance, by adding the VIAF identifier where missing, so that the whole community can use them. So all of these are future developments. There is for sure a lot of room for further improvement and the use of the collected data. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any further question, you can write to phaidra@cab.unipd.it if you want to know something more about this project.
Thank you very much, Giulio, sorry. Thank you very much for this very interesting project. This was a fantastic project that you can see what you can do when you have all the data digital, all the charts you shown. Also, the map was very interesting for the data, so there gives a lot of new insights. Are there any questions? Yes, Susanne.
Grazie mille, Giulio. I have no question, I have a comment. I'm deeply impressed by your project, and it's incredible what you do with metadata and how deep you go inside this topic. I'm really impressed. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Yes, this wouldn't be possible with the collaboration between librarians and archivists. This is a point to really important because sometimes they have two way of thinking the same data, with different way of thinking of the same data. Librarians maybe catalog, archivists inventorying, and they models the data in different ways. But we found that the mapping between them is possible, and it's possible to even enrich and augment the potential of this data. And maybe we also plan to, because now we have disseminate this data, we have archived this data in PHAIDRA as collections, as 23,000 digital objects structured in the collection content type that we have in PHAIDRA. But we can also think of release and publish the raw data that we use, so that maybe someone can do even more analysis or work on this data.
Yes, that's really great. And you already mentioned that you have librarians and archivists, but you also showing in your presentation that you have many other different peoples also on the project. You have people from the IT, you have also voluntary people and so on. How important do you see that you have such a diverse team working on the project for the success?
It is very important because everyone brings their competencies, their skills, and then you can make them, yes, you can bring them together and get the most out of it. And the 15 civil volunteers, every year also they changed because yeah, they have a fixed term contract, and it was also interesting to teaching them how to do the cataloging, the analysis of documents. And it's not only a workforce, but it is something that can be useful for these people also in their future careers. So while we analyze the documents, we also taught to them how to get the most out of these documents, and at the same time we learn something. Also.
Yes, thank you very much. This is the same what Susanna and me are always telling when we do trainings, that we learn also from our participants. And it's also an excellent example how important or how close research and teaching and education goes together. And so it makes completely sense to open up both. So thank you again. Thank you very much.